Hey there, and welcome to Light Novel Sound, where I bring stories to life through voice. Today, we'll embark on a journey into the world of Astral Pet Store by Ancient She. And if you'd like to read along, you can find the original novel at lightnovelworld.co. So, what's not to love about transmigrating into a world full of pets? There are mighty creatures of all shapes and sizes, some cuddly, some fierce, and some, both. And I've even got my own pet store to run. Sounds great, right? Well, not exactly. My younger sister can't stand me. I've got zero talent for handling astral pets. And don't even get me started on the bizarre system I'm stuck with. But hey, it wouldn't be a proper transmigration without a few ridiculous challenges, right? Before we jump in, a huge thank you to Ancient She for creating this incredible story. And if you enjoy the audiobook, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. It really helps support the channel and keeps these stories alive in the YouTube world. Alright, let's dive into Astral Pet Store. Chapter 391, Representative from the Star Organization. The Liu family elder turned pale, drenched in a cold sweat. At that moment, the feeling of death assaulted his senses. He was right in the jaws of death. He had heard about how powerful Su Ping was from Liu Tianzong and other elders, and he had seen the outstanding abilities Su Ping demonstrated in the videos. But he only realized this day that the stories he heard were not exaggerated at all. This young man was a vicious monster. That one punch frightened the others as well. The rest of the onlookers were taken aback. They had seen videos of Su Ping as well, so they were mentally prepared. But at that close range, they had gained a more direct feeling of Su Ping's strength. Deep in their hearts, they began to treat Su Ping as an equal. It wasn't because of the mysterious supporter or the young man's battle pets. It was because of his strength. Since Venerable the Blade and Tang were sitting the closest to Su Ping, they were the two who had the strongest feelings. They had known Su Ping for a while, but they never thought that he could be so horrifying. Venerable the Blade had met a fair share of talented people, and he was a genius in his own right. He could understand it if Su Ping were using a battle pet to scare a titled battle pet warrior, but not his own strength. Venerable the Blade even wondered if Su Ping were hiding his age or faking his rank. Tang had a lifeless expression. She was aware that Su Ping was talented, even more so than she was. But what happened at this moment had shattered her view of him. Again, she had been trying to overestimate Su Ping, and it turned out that she was still off the mark by far. Besides, she could tell that this fellow was still hiding some strength. Mr. Su, please, don't be mad at us. The other elder of the Liu family was sweating profusely as well. He believed that if Su Ping were to start killing, then he would probably lose his life there as well. After all, the store was Su Ping's territory. Several rooms could escape their perception. Who could tell if there were other titled battle pet warriors there or not? The elder of the Liu family couldn't help but speak to Su Ping with greater respect. We haven't thought this through. Please give us another chance to make up for our mistakes. Mr. Su, what do you need? Please tell us. Anything. The elder of the Liu family smiled apologetically. Su Ping snorted. Why did he have to lose his temper for someone to listen to him? Those elders were in high positions and they controlled many people and resources. However, they weren't necessarily smarter than the random man in the street. All the countless dynasties in the past could have taken heed of warnings from historical mistakes, but why could they never avoid following the same old disastrous road? Ignorance and stupidity knew no difference between people's statuses. Those two features were built in human nature, and they would never go away just because people had knowledge, money, or power. Anyone who could alter that nature would be a saint, a god in every sense. You refuse to be convinced until you are faced with grim reality. Your Liu family competed against my store, and that was pure business. I understand. There wasn't any bloodshed or people dying. However, I know very well what you're thinking. Your Liu family thinks that I'm doomed. I also think that you secretly sent a message to the Star Organization. Su Ping continued coldly, but here is something you should know. I have the courage to kill them because I'm not afraid of retaliation. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. They won't have the chance to defeat me. He was not a kind person. How much blood had he seen and how much darkness had he gone through in the chaotic realm of the undead? How many times did he die and come back to life? When he was at the store, he would conceal all the anger in his heart. He did so to prevent anger from clouding his mind, because he didn't want to hurt the people that he loved. However, he didn't have to conceal this anger in front of those outsiders. I can reason with you, but if you don't listen to reason, I will make you tremble. The two elders felt that even their hearts were trembling upon hearing Su Ping's frightening words. Inwardly, they had started to regret the whole matter. They should have known better than to continue provoking the store owner. They were crying inside. When will the Star Organization get here? Go back and tell your family head. Since you're unwilling to hand a proper gift, then go back and give me half of your family assets as an apology. Otherwise, from today on, there shall be no more Liu family in the Longjiang base city. Su Ping warned them. The two elders from the Liu family could not give credit to his warning. He wanted half of their family assets. The other elders were also greatly shaken. No one could have foreseen how greedy Su Ping was. What he was asking could very well destroy the Liu family. And it was just because the Liu family had been stingy? No. Soon, the others realized that it was because the Liu family had made their attitude perfectly clear. They despised Su Ping and believed that he was going to perish soon enough, which had enraged Su Ping. The other reason was the previous dispute between the Liu family and Su Ping. Su Ping was just settling all the scores in one go. This guy. Su Ping claimed that he only regarded the dispute as a business competition. However, in fact, he was trying to destroy the Liu family once and for all. He was the bad guy, but he was standing on the moral high ground. He was the most treacherous king. For a moment, the other elders were eyeing Su Ping with trepidation. They would have been afraid if Su Ping were a brainless fiend. An insidious person like him was the scariest of all. Mr. Su, that. Sweat trickled down their foreheads. The two elders felt they were stepping into a pond of troubles. If they knew this would have happened, they would have prepared 10 dragon eggs, let alone one. Besides, Su Ping had said those warnings in front of everyone else. He had to deliver on his promise or he would lose his authority. If he were to force the Liu family to give up half of their family assets, then the Liu family would no longer be counted as one of the 5 major families, and whatever was left from them would eventually be cannibalized by the other families. The other option was for the Liu family to leave the Longjiang base city and rise from the ashes. But that would be even harder on the Liu family. The two elders from the Liu family felt as if there was a physical burden on their backs, such that they couldn't stand up straight. Right at that moment, a robust voice came from the outside. Anything fun going on here? That voice surprised everyone. They looked over, only to see that a strong man had arrived, standing outside on the stairs before everyone realized. The man was almost 2 meters tall, like a tower. He was the masculine sort, wearing a black, sleeveless t-shirt. He carried a huge iron hammer on his back. The man was creating a suffocating atmosphere. When those inside the store saw this man, they felt all the light had been swallowed. Venerable the Blade was taken aback. He knew this man. One of the most famous titled battle pet warriors in the subcontinent district. King of Arms. Qin Shuhai also appeared to be surprised to see this man. In the next second, he turned pale as he quickly looked at Su Ping. The Star Organization had arrived. This was the day after the Elite League. The King of Arms had come to the Longjiang base city and arrived at Su Ping's store. Qin Shuhai was colorless. So many people were sitting in Su Ping's store. What would the Star Organization think after seeing all of them here? The man's arrival was a surprise to Su Ping as well. After a second of days, Su Ping estimated that the man was at the peak of the titled rank. He had met with many others at the peak of the titled rank. Those whom he had been loafing heaven's tests off from were all at the peak of the titled rank. the very best who were able to sense the calling of heaven's test. Is this man from the Tang family or the Star organization? Su Ping darted a look at Tang Ruyan, only to see that she was confused. He was then sure that the man was from the Star organization. He knew that he wasn't a customer because of a glint of killing intent he kept. That killing intent was very well concealed. However, Su Ping was very sensitive to such things. Not even Venerable the Blade could be as sensitive as he was. On that front, Su Ping was sure of his instinct. Chapter 392, 3 seconds and you can take her. Him? Venerable the Blade. The strong man standing by the door immediately saw Venerable the Blade and Su Ping, who was sitting on the sofa. He wasn't surprised to see Su Ping there because it was the person he was looking for. But why would Venerable the Blade be there with him? The King of Arms blinked. Venerable the Blade worked for Yuan Tianchen. So, was there a connection between the store and Yuan Tianchen? That would complicate things. He was still unsure of that assumption. Yuan Tianchen's men would normally avoid offending the Star organization unless there was some deep-rooted hatred. After all, the deceased legendary battle pet warrior of the Star organization had once been close with Yuan Tianchen. Strange. While the strong man was trying to figure things out, Venerable the Blade stood up and went to meet the strong man. Brother Xie, I thought you were guarding the Well of Abyss in the north. What brought you here? Two other titled battle pet warriors were standing behind the strong man, but the latter had blocked them so no one noticed the two for a moment. When the two saw Venerable the Blade, both were surprised and they shared the strong man's speculation. I should be the one asking the question. Why are you here? Xie Ganj could tell from Venerable the Blade's question that the latter was unaware of the conflict between the young man and the Star organization. Otherwise, he wouldn't have started such a boring chit-chat. Venerable the Blade rolled his eyes. He was there because of that embarrassing reason. He believed that Xie Ganj was probably there for a similar reason. Why else would the Honorable King of Arms come to such a shabby store in that remote base city? Don't ask the obvious. Since you have arrived, come on inside, Venerable the Blade said grumpily. He turned around and walked back to where Su Ping was without hesitation. Xie Ganj? What was obvious? He soon realized that Venerable the Blade had misunderstood the reason for his visit. That was even more baffling. Xie Ganj looked around and saw many titled battle pet warriors in the store. Interesting. He had sensed those presences before he went in. But he didn't take them seriously since none of them were at the peak of the titled rank. The only ones that mattered to him were Venerable the Blade and the young man. You must be Mr. Su. Xie Ganj came in, wearing a gentle smile. Before he was able to get the specifics about Su Ping's store, he decided not to question him directly. Su Ping asked casually, "Are you here to buy something or to find someone?" Xie Ganj was not surprised to hear that Su Ping knew who he was. The latter, of course. I wonder, is that person doing fine? He smiled. Su Ping replied with a silent smile. That is none of your businesses was what Su Ping left unsaid. The other elders present had come back to their senses. They were startled to see Venerable the Blade stand up to greet the strong man. Venerable the Blade would not go and greet just anyone. Besides, the strong man had created much tension in the room. Is he from the Star organization? Why would they send over only one man? Xie? Is he Xie Ganj, the King of Arms? The elders were anxious and doubtful. Xie Ganj raised his eyebrows. A glint of coldness rose in his eyes. He glanced around the store and immediately noticed some strangeness. Something had begun to trouble him ever since he first arrived at the door. The two dragon statues seemed to be alive. The vividness and the dangerous sensation they exuded made him feel that he was being faced by two living, breathing beasts. The store was even stranger than the statues. He was unable to feel the closed rooms at all. The places that could block out his senses were usually important locations or places where titled battle pet warriors at the peak had set up seals. But this was merely a pet store. What could the store have that required this level of secrecy? That strangeness confused him even more. He didn't lose his temper just because Su Ping was arrogant. He looked into Su Ping's eyes and said, "Brother Su, I'm a member of the Star Organization, Xieganj. I'm here today to pick up a girl that our organization has been grooming. Since she's with you, I hope you can let me get her. We have found out about the event. Let bygones be bygones. What do you think?" The other family elders eyed each other in speechless surprise. They did have some theories about the man's identity, but were unsure of him actually representing the Star Organization, not to mention being a real member. He had to be at the peak of the titled rank. The even stranger thing was to see Xieganj acting so politely. That was not how they pictured the scene of the Star Organization's arrival. Since when did the Star Organization become so kind? Venerable the Blade had been seated by Su Ping. After hearing Xieganj's words, he couldn't help but gaze at Su Ping in wonder. He realized that he had misunderstood Xieganj. It turned out that Xieganj was there to have someone released. That was to say, something happened between Su Ping and the Star Organization. What a bad day to visit, Venerable the Blade said to himself. First, those local titled battle pet warriors showed up, and then Xieganj from the Star Organization arrived. What has Su Ping been doing recently? He must have created a ton of troubles. Besides, if a fight were to break out between Xieganj and Su Ping, Venerable the Blade believed the former would suffer. After all, even Yuan Tianchen had almost lost his life in the store. Once something bad happened to the Star Organization, the butterfly effect would kick in. The entire political structure of the subcontinent district could very well shift and other disasters would ensue. Su Ping was the one able to control everything. At that thought, even Venerable the Blade couldn't help but get nervous. Tang Ruyan was standing behind them like a maid. She was surprised by Xieganj's words. Soon enough, that surprise turned into happiness. He was here for Yang Bingyu. It turned out that the Star Organization had gone there before the Tang family did. When he took Yang Bingyu away, she could also leave according to the agreement she reached with Yang Bingyu. "I am about to escape this abyss of misery." Tang Ruyan was secretly gloating. "How can I believe that you're a man of your word?" Su Ping did not seem to be interested at all. "I let you take her away and I'll be left without a hostage. That will make things easier for you, right?" Xieganj frowned. Indeed, that was his plan. Deliver his promise? He didn't have to do that if Su Ping died. But, before he found out everything about the store, he would not resort to violence so quickly. By asking for Yang Bingyu, he just wanted to save some dignity for the Star Organization first. "What can I do to make you trust me?" Xieganj asked. Su Ping grinned. "I don't have to trust you, because that'll put me in a less advantageous position. Do you want her? Sure. You have two options. First, the Star Organization has to demonstrate enough sincerity. Second, you want to find out about something. I'll grant you that wish. You can take her away as long as you can last 3 seconds in front of my battle pet." Xieganj did not expect that. Venerable the Blade and the other elders were also stunned into stillness. The first option was understandable, but the second. He said that if this man, who was at the peak of the titled rank, could last 3 seconds, he could take Yang Bingyu away? It sounded as if Su Ping was confident Xieganj would be unable to do that. How was that even possible? Chapter 393, The Tang Family Arrives. In the meantime, outside the base city, a dark cloud was moving fast. The battle pet warriors who were standing on guard on the watchtowers used their telescopes to look into the cloud. Surprisingly, it was a flock of birds. All the birds were advanced beasts, 8th rank thunder sparrows. There had to be over 1,000 of them, which could count as a beast uprising. Flying in front of the flock of thunder sparrows were 3 larger birds that had towering figures. The 3 were all at the 9th rank but were of different families. The scariest of them all was a dark feather phoenix, a beast with a bloodline at the peak of the 9th rank. The wingspan of the dark feather phoenix was over 100 meters. This dark feather phoenix had reached its prime state. The soldiers guarding the base city were frightened. It was horrifying. A beast at the peak of the 9th rank could severely maul a base city, and Class A alarms would be sounded all across the city. Besides, birds were the trickiest when it came to beast uprisings. There were many aerial hot weapons, like sonic wave weapons. That being said, it was still hard for a base city to guard against air raids. Soon, someone noticed that there were minuscule figures standing on top of the birds. Those tiny dots were solemn and magnificent, especially the 3 people that were standing on the backs of the 3 9th rank beasts. It was as if the 3 could withstand the sky falling over them, overlooking the earth. That had to be what those people were feeling. The soldiers were ready to pull the alarms at any minute. They had immediately reported the information to their leaders. With people standing on the beasts, a beast uprising was ruled out. Thus far, no force would attack a base city randomly. That would be against the federal law, and such attacks would be loathed by all base cities and the entire human society. Soon, several people flew up from the rear area. Someone was riding on a bird with a wingspan of over 100 meters as a display of their strength. The soldiers threw their heads back and discussed as the titled battle pet warriors did the talking. The force of such a contingent was extraordinary. Some of the well-informed soldiers had worked up some theory. This is the Longjiang base city. And you are? The titled battle pets guarding the Longjiang base city were standing in front of the dark feather phoenix. The titled battle pet warrior riding on the huge bird could tell that his bird was slowing down as it was approaching the dark feather phoenix, which belied its fear. The titled battle pet warrior pulled a long face. The dark feather phoenix's amber eyes were half the size of a human. There was an ominous glint in them as it stared at the titled battle pet warriors moving closer. It was as if those people were mere insects to the phoenix. The phoenix could eat them up in one bite. The titled battle pet warriors could vividly sense that tension. We're from the Tang family and we come for our future family head. Stay back. An old man standing on the dark feather phoenix hunched his back. However, he was like a king overlooking the world. His face wore no emotions and his voice was indifferent. Behind him, heavy-armored warriors were standing on the 1,000 thunder sparrows, creating a ruthless feeling. Their overwhelming energy almost suffocated the titled battle pet warriors. Weak and vulnerable. The titled battle pet warriors suddenly felt small and insignificant. The aura from the hunchbacked old man lingered above their heads like a piece of the dark cloud. The Tang family? Why would they come here? The titled battle pet warriors were concerned. They had thought that those people were from the Star organization. The recent events at the Elite League had provoked much discussion. They all knew that someone in the base city had offended the famous Star organization. But it was the Tang family, instead of the Star organization, the ones who came. The Tang family had sent over so many people, which was an impressive display of their power and influence. They came to find their future family head? Why would she be in Longjiang base city? One of the titled battle pet warriors worked up the courage to speak. The Tang family. I have heard so much about you. Is there any misunderstanding? We'd like to help in any way we can if you're looking for your future family head. A toothless old lady standing on a 9th rank storm eagle shouted all of a sudden, "Go away!" Her shout made the air ripple and the shockwaves were surging toward the titled battle pet warriors. The titled battle pet warriors stepped back out of instinct. In an instant, they were forced back dozens of meters. The dark feather phoenix took orders from the old man standing on its back. The phoenix cried, flapped its wings, and darted forth. The titled battle pet warriors turned pale. They stepped aside, afraid to stand in their way. While they were making way, the 3 9th rank beasts flew over their heads, followed by the 1,000 thunder sparrows which carried the heavy-armored warriors. The titled battle pet warriors looked sickly as the birds flapped their wings and chirped. The Tang family was bossier than expected. Hurry, gather everyone. We have to find out what their intentions are, a titled battle pet warrior shouted. Someone went to send the message at once. The others calmed themselves down and went after the Tang family. They would not follow them too closely, but they had to make sure that they could always have them on sight. Still, The Tang family's army was great in strength and impetus. It would be hard to lose track of them with the 1,000 Thunder Sparrows. Inside the Pixie Pet store, the elders, as well as Venerable the Blade sitting next to him and Tang Ruyan who was standing behind him, were struck dumb with astonishment. Venerable the Blade knew Su Ping well. But Su Ping was talking about his battle pet. Venerable the Blade knew that if the mysterious girl with the golden hair in the store were to battle Xie Ganj, the latter would lose within 1 second, not to mention last for 3 seconds. However, Su Ping was talking about his battle pet. The battle pets would always be influenced by their masters. After all, a battle pet was unlikely to be too far apart in strength in relation to its master. Otherwise, the battle pet could easily hurt the master's spirit. Therefore, while Su Ping's battle pets could be stronger than he was, that would be to a certain limit. Defeating one at the peak of the titled rank? The pet would have to possess legendary rank powers. If that would happen, it would imply that Su Ping had legendary rank abilities. Venerable the Blade stared at Su Ping in a daze. The former was speechless. He had the understanding that Su Ping was being supported by a legendary battle pet warrior, but that did not mean Su Ping was a legendary battle pet warrior. Tang Ruyan stood aghast and open-mouthed. She wondered if Su Ping was losing his mind or whether he had become too arrogant after the local titled battle pet warriors had praised him to high heaven. He might not even know who he was dealing with. 3 seconds? It never occurred to Xie Ganj that this was the second option Su Ping would propose. He darted a glance at Venerable the Blade. If he and Venerable the Blade were to battle, it would be hours before they could determine which of them would be the winner. After all, both of them were at the peak of the titled rank and the gap in their strength was minimal. They would have to battle several rounds to learn more about each other's moves. Many a little makes a mickle. Only after they understood each other's abilities completely could one side eventually win. The battle pet would have to overpower Xie Ganj by a large margin to defeat him within 3 seconds. Are you sure? A glint of coldness rose in Xie Ganj's eyes. The ones that dared to provoke the Star Organization would either have to be exceptionally powerful or just wildly arrogant. Clearly, the young man belonged to the second category. This punk! How audacious! The two titled battle pet warriors standing behind Xie Ganj were quaking with rage. They could only clench their fists. If this weren't a grave matter, they would have stepped in for Xie Ganj's sake, to show the young man that titled battle pet warriors were not to be insulted. You're thinking about choosing the second option, right? Su Ping smiled, but the coldness in his eyes grew. Xie Ganj squinted his eyes. I do want to try that. The others present were eyeing Su Ping as if he were a lunatic. How crazy this was. Su Ping said nothing. A swirl appeared, and the little skeleton stepped out. The elders were scared by the skeleton. Back at the Elite League, it was this strange skeleton that killed 3 titled battle pet warriors in a row. Of course. Xie Ganj said to himself. He had seen the videos and the most frightening thing about the young man was the skeleton. The members of the Star Organization had concluded that the skeleton had titled rank abilities. Inside the store, Xie Ganj took a deep breath. He was ready to summon his battle pets as well. He wasn't sure whether he could make it for 3 seconds if he were all by himself. Su Ping stood up. Follow me. Then he walked to the test room. Venerable the Blade was surprised to see that the battle pet Su Ping was going to use was the skeleton that he had been teaching. Venerable the Blade was well aware that the skeleton was much more powerful than the other common skeletons. Still, there was no way that the skeleton would be able to defeat Xie Ganj within 3 seconds. Chapter 394, 6 Pets at the Peak of the 9th Rank. Confused and curious, Venerable the Blade went after Su Ping. Since Venerable the Blade had left to follow Su Ping, the other elders gave each other encouraging looks and they mustered up the courage to go after them. They thought they could probably meet the secret supporter behind Su Ping in that room. Xie Ganj looked worried. He wondered if Su Ping was trying to set him up. Otherwise, why would Su Ping insist on going to that room? What was the difference between that room and the storefront? When the fight broke out, He could easily smash the building into pieces, no matter where he was. Besides, Ganj had noticed that he was unable to see what was inside that room with his perceptual power. On the off chance that other powerful warriors were hiding inside, it would be just like catching a turtle in a jar, with him being the turtle. That was very risky. Ganj hesitated. Eventually, he made up his mind. You, go to the place I told you about, and you, stay by the door. If anything goes wrong in there, do not even try to come and save me. I will give you a signal, and you must evacuate at once and send a message back to the organization, Ganj said to the 2 battle pet warriors standing behind him. The 2 titled battle pet warriors turned pale. Sir! Don't! This is an order, Ganj said solemnly. The 2 looked at each other, filing their teeth. They stepped out of the store. One of them stayed close to the entrance and the other one flew away in case other powerful warriors would come out and ambush the one staying by the door. As they settled into position, Ganj took a deep breath and walked into that room. Where are your 2 minions? Su Ping raised his eyebrows when he noticed the 2 did not enter along with Ganj. Soon, Su Ping realized something. He flashed a sarcastic grin. Ganj snorted. He didn't answer Su Ping's question. Is this the room? Don't blame me if I accidentally tear your store apart later. Su Ping didn't mind Ganj not replying to his question. He didn't have to think hard to figure out where the 2 were. The other elders and Venerable the Blade had figured it out as well, but they said nothing. They just looked around the room and failed to find anything out of the ordinary. The room wasn't large enough to allow a titled battle pet warrior to fight. You don't have the strength to tear apart my store just yet. Su Ping smiled as if laughing at Ganj. I don't want to bully you. So, what kind of venue do you want? Ganj raised his eyebrows. It had been years since anyone had said those words to him. Besides, he did not understand. Why did Su Ping say those words? Wasn't he already at the venue, the room itself? Anything, Ganj said coldly. He was relieved that no other titled battle pet warriors of his rank were in the room. He just wanted to get it over with, so he was no longer in the mood to waste time. Really? Then I will choose the venue that I like. Su Ping said to Tang Ruyan, set up a place suitable for the undead family. Tang Ruyan had become familiar with the room. She felt sorry that Ganj didn't make a choice. Choosing a place suitable for himself would increase his chances of winning. But she had to obey Su Ping's orders. She went to turn the switch. Soon, the room began to change. Gradually, the sky and the ground began to extend into infinity, forming a boundless land. Then came the dark clouds. The dark brown soil on the ground looked like the residue of caked blood. Bones and remains were scattered on the ground. Soon, the room turned into an ancient arena. Bones covered up the ground. There seemed to be some wisps of dark mist and whispers that were barely audible. This was an entirely new world. The elders and Ganj could not believe this change. Was this a special effect? It's too realistic. No special effect could produce this. Besides, they could indeed look into the horizon as if it were an independent world. They couldn't even find the end of the space. Ganj looked at the young man in confusion. He finally understood why Su Ping asked what kind of venue he liked. He could choose one. This venue where death abounded was clearly more than suitable for that skeleton. Ganj quickly calmed himself down from his surprise. A glint of coldness rose in his eyes. This environment was not the most suitable for him, but given his rank, environments didn't matter much to him. But the strangeness of the room did disturb his mind a bit. He had never seen anything like it. He wondered if this was some advanced technology. It didn't look like something developed on the blue planet. On the other hand, if this was unrelated to technology, then the alternative had to be even more horrifying. Come on now, Su Ping said coldly. Ganj came back to his senses. He darted a meaningful gaze at Su Ping and then flew into the arena where bones and remains abounded, starting from the space by the edge of the room. He felt he was in another world. The arena was large enough to house several battle pets of the 9th rank. Remembering that 2 people were still waiting outside, Ganj immediately resorted to action. He mobilized astral powers and 6 swirls appeared behind him. The 6 swirls were of various sizes, but they were equally horrifying. Roar! That was a dragon's bellow. There was a gobbling sound generated by some pet of the demon family. It was the noise of a sort of mucus spilling around. There was an extreme heat that had increased the temperature in the room. The swirls grew and the battle pets stepped out one by one. There was a dragon, a battle pet of the demon family, a pet of the element family, and a humanoid pet that was 8 meters tall, with an armor-like skin and a hammer that resembled the one that Ganj carried. But the hammer the pet carried was exceptionally large, with a length of over a dozen meters. The hammer was certainly able to crush anyone into a pile of goo. In total, 6 battle pets came out from behind Ganj and stood around him like towering mountains. The elders, as well as Tang, were startled by the battle pets. The 6 of them were at the peak of the 9th rank. The battle pets were imbued with a spirit that was able to conquer mountains and rivers. Any one of the 6 pets were greatly dangerous, not to mention when the 6 were summoned. Ganj himself was at the peak of the 9th rank. This was the strength of Ganj, the king of arms. The elders of the major families looked at each other in speechless astonishment. Ganj alone could defeat all of them present. They were all titled battle pet warriors, but the gap between the elders and Ganj was vast. Qin Shuhai's eyes glowed. He was seized with a surge of thrill and he craved for that strength. He was at the upper position of the titled rank and his title was well known. However, compared to one at the peak of the titled rank, he was still a child. To progress further would mean that he would have to be like Ganj. Still, Qin Shuhai was well aware that there was a long journey before him. Qin Shuhai also had many battle pets, but merely 2 of his battle pets were at the peak of the 9th rank. That was it. Compared to 6 battle pets at the peak of the 9th rank, those 2 meant nothing. While everyone was exclaiming about the 6 battle pets at the peak of the 9th rank, Venerable the Blade cast a grave glance at the humanoid battle pet that was carrying the huge hammer. Even though all the pets were at the peak of the 9th rank, their strength still varied. That humanoid battle pet was named Thunder Hammer, and was the most powerful battle pet of Ganj, the king of arms. Su Ping stared at the 6 battles with great interest. Well, Ganj indeed had a great number of battle pets and he had to be a resourceful man, given that all of his pets were at the peak of the 9th rank. Su Ping gazed at the dragon which he found the most intriguing. That was a rare, mutated kind. It seemed that the dragon had evolved from the silver winged dragon. This dragon still retained the appearance of the silver winged dragon, only that this dragon's wings had turned grey. The dragon was wearing a huge armor that was forged by a kind of metal that Su Ping could not recognize. This was the first time for Su Ping to see a pet wearing armor. To be more exact, a pet that was not a humanoid battle pet. After all, humanoid battle pets, which were like enhanced versions of human beings, in most cases would use weapons in battles. No pet is at the legendary rank. Su Ping found it weird. Wasn't Ganj a titled battle pet warrior known all across the subcontinent district? I'm ready. Ganj stood on the ground. Glistening astral powers surrounded him. He was slowly building up an astral power shield as he gazed at Su Ping coldly. Su Ping nodded. He looked at the little skeleton, patted its head, and told the little skeleton what it needed to do. The little skeleton raised its head. While a bit baffled, the little skeleton nodded and then flew towards the arena. The little skeleton stood in the air and slowly drew its blade. The blade? Venerable the Blade was staring in bewilderment. The little skeleton had been progressing fast with its blade skills, but it was not a master yet. Venerable the Blade believed that even he wouldn't have been able to use his saber to defeat Ganj within 3 seconds, not to mention the fact that the little skeleton's blade skills were much weaker. Ganj stared at the little skeleton. He was 70% sure that he could defeat the skeleton and over 100% sure that he could last for 3 seconds. He gave his orders. Roar! The mutated silver winged dragon shouted. Many metal walls rose from the ground and the metal fortress shielded Xieganj inside. At the same time, the battle pet of the demon family and those of the element families began to unleash their defensive skills as well. All of the skills were for defense. Xieganj's pets were setting up all those layers of defense as if the skills would not cost any energy. The protection was impeccable. He agreed that he would last for 3 seconds, not that he had to win. That was too easy. The family elders and Venerable the Blade had never expected that Xieganj had given up on the offense and was going for the defense. But what he did was indeed in line with Su Ping's rules. Chapter 395, 1.36 seconds. Everyone shifted their gaze to Su Ping, trying to find some traces of embarrassment and panic on the young man's face. But no, the young man was just as calm as he always was. No one could tell what he was thinking. The two elders were sneering inwardly because they believed that Su Ping was just pretending and that they could already tell what the results would be. At the moment, Xieganj as well as his 6 battle pets at the peak of the 9th rank were on guard, highly alerted. He could even survive even if all the bombs of the Longjiang base city exploded over him. Not even a legendary battle pet warrior could defeat Xieganj within 3 seconds. Xieganj was at the peak of the titled rank and was renowned all over the subcontinent district. He wasn't just anyone. Su Ping would hurt himself by his own doing. He had been too arrogant. "Are you ready?" Su Ping asked Xieganj coldly. Xieganj sneered. "You can start at any time now." Su Ping darted him an indifferent look but said nothing else. He took out his phone, pulled up the stopwatch, and sent an order full of killing intent to the little skeleton. Sparing no effort to defeat him. The little skeleton had been standing in the air, quietly. All of a sudden, 2 beams of crimson light broke out from the little skeleton's dark eye sockets. The dark energy slowly wafted out like a mist, clinging to the bones of the little skeleton like twisted tentacles. The dark energy grew stronger and expanded rapidly, enveloping the little skeleton entirely. A heavy smell of death filled the air, accompanied by the smell of blood. Even the people standing outside could perceive the smell of blood, which was too pungent to be tolerable. Everyone looked shocked. A gale began to flow. A dark hurricane came into being out of nowhere on that land of bones. The hurricane spun around the little skeleton. A shadow was emerging behind it, becoming more and more tangible, until the shadow formed a figure that was as towering as a mountain. The figure seemed to be sitting on a throne that was located in another space and time zone, and the figure was looking down on the world. The magnificent Skeleton King. Not even the barrier of time and space could stop the Skeleton King's spirit from spreading across. The little skeleton that was in front of the magnificent Skeleton King was gaining momentum. It was as if the little skeleton were wearing the skin of a god, of a demon. The bone blade emitted a dark glow that could devour the light, and the blade had enlarged to over 12 meters long. Killing intent. Burning flames. There seemed to be a trace of golden color in the little skeleton's crimson eye sockets. The little skeleton raised its head and stared at the strong man that hid behind the 6 huge battle pets. Then, Xieganj and the little skeleton made eye contact. That violent killing intent assaulted his mind. He felt he was hearing countless demons crying, numerous ghosts screaming, and he could see skeletons struggling to stand up. That was the view of hell. Was this skeleton pet from hell? Xieganj was frightened. At that moment, he sensed he was isolated. His blood was freezing. "Begin!" It was Su Ping shouting. At the same time, he pressed start on the stopwatch. Here it was. 3 seconds. Xieganj readied himself. With strong willpower, he broke free from all those messy thoughts in his mind. Instantly, he gave orders to his pets. A second before, he had thought that defending would be easy for him. But right after, he had unknowingly become nervous before knowing. The little skeleton made a step forward and suddenly a roar broke out. Roar! Behind the little skeleton, the Skeleton King was growling as well, and that noise was shaking the sky and the earth. The 6 battle pets standing around Xie and Xie himself felt an urge to get down on the ground after this roar which had disturbed their hearts and minds. The energy contained in the roar was hard to imagine. The sky seemed to be falling because of it. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. An almost transparent seal came into being. That was a legendary rank protection that could stop anything from using teleporting skills. The seal had been set up by Xie beforehand just to guard against the little skeleton. Skills such as the little skeleton's sudden teleporting were usually fatal for titled battle pet warriors, but this seal would render those skills ineffective. However, the little skeleton didn't move. The little skeleton didn't flash away. Faced with countless seals and shields, the little skeleton slowly raised its blade. The little skeleton raised the more than 10-meter-long dark blade high. It seemed that the magnificent skeleton king was holding a blade in his hands as well. Slash! The little skeleton wielded the huge blade. It waved the blade while it was half an arena away from its opponent. That blade had a dark color, but the moment the little skeleton waved it, the blade seemed to be able to light up the world. Stunning! Extraordinary! No words could describe that slash. The blade took away all the light and all the elements. The only thing people could see with their eyes was the dark glow emitted by the sword. Venerable, the blade stared with his mouth agape. What was that? On the other side of the arena, Xie was visibly terrified. He felt the blade could cut up his soul. Bang! Something cracked all of a sudden. Those transparent seals, shields, and protective layers were all cut into pieces by that blade. Nothing could stop it. Like a bulldozer, the blade was swept across everything. Merely one instant had passed when all the defense layers were destroyed. All those defensive layers which had been set up by 9th rank skills. All of them fell apart like pieces of foam. Bang! The mutated silver-winged dragon standing before Xie was a layer of defense as well. However, the moment the blade touched the dragon, the armor covering the dragon broke. The blade whooshed on, easily cutting up the dragon's metallic wing. The dragon's scales that should be indestructible turned as fragile as a piece of paper. The blade was still advancing. Roar! A pet of the element family bellowed and dashed over. Bolts of lightning were glaring over the pet. The bolt of lightning crashed into the blade, but the blade smashed the pet away. There was a huge, diagonal cut across the pet's chest, a cut that almost halved the pet. There wasn't enough time for the other battle pets to react. Everything happened too quickly. Xie was horrified. He witnessed how all the protective layers had been torn to pieces, and the special astral shield he had built up himself was also breaking. They all cracked as if made of glass. Only the residual energy told him that those shields had once existed. During that terrifying moment, even sound had vanished. Run! Run away from it! PFF! Blood spurted out. Xie made a turn to the side. He thought the blade was still some distance away from him, when in fact, the blade had already reached him. An arm was hurled up into the air. The pain had yet to reach his brain. Xie felt a chill, coming from the bottom of his feet to the top of his head. There was a bone blade in front of his forehead. The point of the blade was aiming at his forehead. The little skeleton should have been half an arena away, that was where it had been a second before. However, at this moment, the little skeleton had reached him, after it cracked all the defense layers. The magnificent skeleton king remained standing behind the little skeleton. The power from the skeleton king made the 6 battle pets tremble with fright. Stop, someone said. It was Su Ping. Never in his life did Xie realize that a man's voice could be that beautiful. That raging killing intent receded at once. But the skeleton was still standing in front of him and the blade was still pointed at his forehead. The blade was too close to him. He would never be able to escape. Whoosh! Su Ping flew over and landed by Xie. Su Ping showed Xie the stopwatch. Look at the time. We can try again if you're dissatisfied about the result. Xie read the number. 1.36 seconds. Less than 2 seconds. Xie face was clouded. He was not questioning Su Ping's stopwatch. After all, he knew what happened. The skeleton had only wielded its blade once. Time no longer mattered. He was sure that he couldn't have survived that slash. Chapter 396, Wanna learn? Learn from the skeleton. That was a crushing defeat. To count how many seconds had passed was meaningless at this point. The little skeleton had merely waved its saber once, but none of the 6 battle pets at the peak of the 9th rank was able to withstand the strike, even when all of them had taken precautions. The little skeleton must have legendary rank power. A battle pet like that. What would that entail? It implied that no titled battle pet warrior, no matter how powerful they were, could beat the little skeleton. The only ones that could overpower the little skeleton would be the legendary battle pet warriors. In other words, the young man was the most powerful of all entities below the legendary rank. To talk about the 3-second was pointless. He finally understood why the young man would walk over and show him the stopwatch as if nothing had happened. Xie Ganj was filled with complex feelings. He could not put his thoughts into words. Outside, the elders of the major families, Venerable the Blade and Tang Ruyan, were all rooted to the spot. Their astonishment continued even when Su Ping went to show Xie Ganj the time. That was a horrifying move. Xie Ganj, the King of Arms, a warrior at the peak of the titled rank, lost after one move? It was merely one move. And he had been defeated. For a time, even Venerable the Blade, who wore a transfixed expression, could not quite understand what had happened. Xie Ganj and Venerable the Blade were well matched in strength. Venerable the Blade had never had the chance to fight against Xie Ganj, so he could hardly tell which one of them would emerge victorious. However, it was a fact that Xie Ganj was at the peak of the titled rank, having earned fame for years. It was hard to believe that he would be put to rout directly, not to mention the fact that he had been fully prepared. Legendary! That skeleton had to be a battle pet at the legendary rank. For Venerable the Blade, it sounded beyond logic and reason. The skeleton was just learning from him not long before. Standing behind him was Tang Ruyan, who was also frozen on the spot. Legendary battle pet? If that were the truth, then her Tang family. At this thought, her heart skipped a beat. She could not help but tremble. She had given up hope. Face the music now. Do you yield? Su Ping put away his phone and stared at Xie Ganj. Xie Ganj cleared his mind. His mouth twitched. For all those years, this was the first time he had heard this question. Yield? He would have challenged the little skeleton several more times if he was still in his youth when he had a short fuse. That hot temper had gotten him into many troubles. He had amended his personality with the passage of time. Can I go with the first option? Xie Ganj produced a forced smile, and he no longer sounded indifferent. The skeleton's marvelous skill had stunned him. Besides, he was well aware that he had just seen the tip of the iceberg. But the tip was already more horrifying than how they had previously anticipated. He could not help but wonder how terrifying the part of the iceberg that was underwater would be. He couldn't afford to anger the young man. He couldn't anger him. The girl was just a kid trained by the organization. She had to be sacrificed. So be it. Because there were many other promising kids in the organization. It would be stupid to jeopardize the entire organization over a single kid. Xie Ganj felt lucky that Su Ping had stopped the skeleton in time. Otherwise, if the skeleton had killed him there, then the nature of this event would change. Xie Ganj was one of the flags of the Star Organization. If he were to die there, the Star Organization would go all out and retaliate against Su Ping. By then, if it turned out that a legendary battle pet warrior was supporting this store, then the Star Organization could lose heavily or end up in a catastrophe. Based on the intel he had collected, he believed that there was a great chance that a legendary battle pet warrior was backing the store. Xie Ganj remembered what the president told him. He would have to concede if he found evidence of a legendary battle pet warrior's presence. It wasn't disgraceful to lose to a legend. The first option. It seemed that Su Ping was not surprised that Xie Ganj would mention this. I have shamed the Star organization in public during the Elite League and you still had the confidence to come here alone. Now, do you have the answer you so eagerly wanted to know? Su Ping said, teasingly. Xie Ganj turned pale. He had not realized that the young man had already seen through him. Was this indeed a young man in his 20s? I have been reckless. Please forgive me. Xie Ganj put on a smile and apologized without delay. His respectful attitude was his answer to Su Ping's question. Were it not for the blade that was still pointed at his forehead, Xie Ganj would have moved and shaken Su Ping's hands. Su Ping was glad that Xie Ganj was able to read the room, so he told the little skeleton to put down its blade. Let's revisit the first option then. Su Ping and the little skeleton turned around and walked out of the test room. As Su Ping stepped over, Venerable the Blade felt stressed out. The only other person that had given him this feeling was Yuan Tianchen. Your battle pet. Venerable the Blade hesitated but eventually decided to ask Su Ping. But the former was evidently more careful than before. Is it at the legendary rank? Su Ping had sat down on the couch. He took out 2 ice creams and gave an ice cream cone to Venerable the Blade. No, Su Ping shook his head. Su Ping didn't say that the little skeleton was merely at the 7th rank. After running the store for a while, he had gained a fundamental understanding of people's psychological enduring capacity. If he said the facts as they were to Venerable the Blade, the latter would merely take that as a joke. So, he decided against it. As he had expected, Venerable the Blade smiled an awkward but polite smile. It wasn't the legendary rank? Are you kidding me? He had only felt that overwhelming sense from legendary battle pet warriors. Besides, this wasn't the first time he had found evidence of a legendary battle pet warrior in the store. The mysterious girl with the golden hair was more of a freak. Even Yuan Tianchen had lost within 1 move. Venerable the Blade grabbed the ice cream cone. He had already had one but he didn't mind having another one. As a matter of fact, he appeared to be enjoying himself. Last time I came to teach your skeleton, its skill wasn't so. Venerable the Blade licked his ice cream and asked Su Ping. What he had just witnessed had left a mark on his heart. He couldn't forget it even if he wanted to. Venerable the Blade was obsessed with sabers and swords and even more so with the skills. He was itchy to have a deeper understanding of the little skeleton's move. Su Ping darted him a look. Do you want to learn it? I can let the little skeleton teach you. In the old days, when the little skeleton had yet to master any saber skill, there were many things that Venerable the Blade could have taught it. However, ever since the little skeleton went to the demigod burial where the true gods and celestial gods would train it, the little skeleton had been progressing by leaps and bounds. It had even picked up a legendary rank saber skill but had only scratched the surface thus far. Otherwise, just then, the little skeleton would have inflicted greater harm, not merely having cut off Xie Ganj's arm. The little skeleton would have wiped him away. Venerable the Blade was seized with a troubling feeling. His former student would become his teacher? The marvelous move once again popped into his mind. After a moment of hesitation, Venerable the Blade nodded. Sure. Su Ping was surprised that Venerable the Blade would agree. After all, it wouldn't reflect well on him to learn skills from a battle pet. Not everyone had such courage. On the other hand, Su Ping would have done the same thing. Strength was everything. That was the truth he had learned after experiencing death time after time. A person would only enjoy fame after having the necessary strength to live. Fine. I will find the time. Su Ping nodded. He thought highly of this brotherling. Not every battle pet warrior at the peak of the titled rank could be this humble. Brother Ling sure had a promising future. Venerable the Blade was glad that Su Ping had agreed. At the same time, the other elders and Xie Ganj had returned. Looking at the two sitting on the couch, the elders couldn't help but feel nervous and awed. What a rewarding trip. They had seen a legendary-ranked battle pet. Of the entire subcontinent district, few people would have the courage to displease someone like Su Ping. After all, the ones more powerful than him would only be the legendary battle pet warriors. The two elders of the Liu family turned ghastly pale and they couldn't stop their legs from shaking. They shouldn't have such weak legs, given their cultivation levels, but they couldn't help but shake uncontrollably. Chapter 397, Compensation. The two elders of the Liu family felt like crying. Considering the intimidating skeleton that Su Ping had, it was unlikely that the Star Organization would choose to put up a desperate fight against Su Ping. The Liu family would have to face the consequences of their previous actions since the Star Organization was unable to overpower him. The two elders of the Liu family were on tenterhooks. In the meanwhile, none of the other elders were in the mood to gloat and laugh at the Liu family because all of them had been seized by complicated feelings. If Su Ping felt like it, he could unite all of the major families and turn them into his personal force. By then, there would only be one ruler in the Longjiang base city, and that would be Su Ping. That couldn't be a good thing for any of the major families. However, there was nothing they could do. Their only hope was Xieganga, who ended up being defeated within one move. The Star Organization was not foolish. They would not offend Su Ping because of one girl. Sure, they wanted to save face, but they had to consider the cost first. "Why are all of you standing there? Sit down," Su Ping said to those who were rooted to the ground. The elders were startled. They couldn't believe that Su Ping didn't know why they were standing there. Before they went to the test room, they had the confidence to sit down with him. Back then, they believed that Su Ping and they were alike. Besides, they were all titled battle pet warriors who had established their fame years back, in a time when Su Ping was a young man, an emerging talent. It turned out that this emerging talent was a monster. He was so threatening that they were afraid to sit down with him. Xieganj wasn't interested in persuading those family elders because he was in a complicated mood at the moment. He had accomplished his task, which was to find out about the store and the young man. The thing was, the result was the worst he could have ever imagined. Xieganj took a deep breath. He walked over and grabbed himself a chair to sit down. "Mr. Su, let's talk about the first option." Su Ping was speechless after seeing that the family elders refused to sit down, but he didn't make the same offer again. Apart from the Liu family, the other families had done properly and he had no bone to pick with them. That was why he was okay with being nice to them. If the Liu family members were the only visitors present, he wouldn't have bothered to ask them to sit down. "Tell me what you can offer first," Su Ping said to Xieganj. He had to sound the latter out first. Xieganj answered with a question. "Mr. Su, what do you need? I suppose you're not interested in money. Do you want treasures or pets?" "I don't want pets. As you can see, I have a pet store," Su Ping pointed it out. Xieganj nodded. That was not surprising. The battle pets that Su Ping would want, if he did, would be the rare ones, much more cherished than the Inferno Dragon. Those pets would be hard to find in the Star Organization as well, and they would also want to keep those pets. When trained well, those battle pets could grow to the peak of the 9th rank and even make the breakthrough to the legendary rank. As for treasures, Xieganj pondered. Those things were not cheap. Su Ping would not accept the usual treasures. On the other hand, precious treasures would be cherished by any force. "I'm not in dire need of treasures," Su Ping answered. He wasn't that interested because he had obtained quite a number of treasures in the mysterious realm. Many were of the same category, like weapons, and he didn't need them. He would have to go through the trouble and find a place to sell them. Since Xieganj didn't know what to offer, Su Ping made a suggestion. "I have just 3 demands. Think about them. First, I'll give you a list of materials. The Star Organization must find all of them within half a year. Second, give me a list of all the treasures the Star Organization has. I will pick several items that I may be interested in. Third, in the future, when the need arises, I must be able to mobilize some people of the Star Organization to work for me." He explained his demands at once and then stared at Xieganj. Xieganj felt troubled. Su Ping had not asked for much, but he was demanding. "Well, for the first one, we will try your best. But please forgive us for not being able to complete that task if we cannot find the materials you need anywhere," Xieganj said. A person like Su Ping would not bother asking for the common materials. Those things he was looking for were surely hard to find or even extinct. Xie Ganj couldn't make a promise that he couldn't deliver. Su Ping kept his gaze on Xie Ganj for a moment before he nodded. Indeed, that was reasonable. Xie Ganj heaved a sigh of relief. We will do our best to fulfill your second demand. But can you give us a limit on the number of treasures you plan to choose? Like 3 or any other number? No problem, 3 it is. But you have to promise that I can choose from all the treasures you have at the Star Organization. If I find out that you are hiding something, don't blame me for breaking the deal, Su Ping cautioned him. Xie Ganj said right away, of course, we will open up our warehouse to you. We have all the information about the treasures and I will show you all the information updated within the past 6 months. We won't fake a thing. Su Ping snorted. He had no way to determine if they were faking the information. He supposed that they had this ability since Xie Ganj had answered without hesitation. He would see if the Star Organization would make the smart decision. If they were to treat him like a fool by hiding all the good treasures and leaving him a pile of garbage, he would teach them another lesson. He wasn't greedy. He just wanted something rare and with good functions. Something like the scroll would be nice. It wasn't a weapon, but it was quite useful. As for your third demand, Mr. Su, don't worry. In the future, when you come to our territory, we will receive you with the highest standard. Xie Ganj thought this was the easiest demand. Su Ping nodded. Venerable the Blade heaved a sigh. Even the Star Organization had chosen to compromise. The Star Organization had shown up to save the girl but only ended up paying a huge amount as compensation and apology. Su Ping was bullying them. He could do whatever he wanted because he had the power. The other family elders were filled with complicated thoughts as Xie Ganj yielded. Who could have thought that the greatest force of the subcontinent district had surrendered in this shabby store at the Longjiang Bay City? Xie Ganj was relieved to see Su Ping nod. Mr. Su, can I take the girl away with me now? He asked, smiling. Take her away? Su Ping looked at him as if he had heard the funniest joke. What makes you think you can take her away when you haven't given me anything? Well, Xie Ganj also realized that this could be a problem. His eyebrows were knitted together. Or, could you let me see her? Su Ping frowned. Eventually, he agreed. So annoying. Wait here. With that said, he stood up and went to the storage room. Inside, he opened the scroll and shook Yang Bingyu out from the painting. Yang Bingyu was highly alerted. She took a look around before she stood up. She stared at Su Ping with a straight face as if nothing could scare her. Su Ping said, "The Star Organization is coming for you." After those words, a lively expression was revived on her face and her eyes began to glow. They were coming for her. She was about to be set free. No wonder Su Ping was getting her out in this small room instead of the storefront. He was still trying to hide the mysteries of the scroll. Yang Bingyu sneered. She would report back to the organization and tell everything she knew about Su Ping's store. Here. Yang Bingyu once again put on her cold expression. Open the door, she ordered. Su Ping found the change in her attitude interesting but went along with it. The glaring light was cast into the room. Yang Bingyu was glad to see the exterior again. Only after experiencing desperation and imprisonment could she understand how precious freedom was. The King of Arms. As soon as she came into the storefront, she saw Xie Ganj sitting on the couch. She had not realized that the organization valued her this much. They had sent a member to pick her up. How thrilling and exciting this was. Chapter 398, Enemy at the Door. Sir! Yang Bingyu ran to him. Although her astral powers had been sealed, she could still move about with agility. There was no trace of arrogance on her face. She was full of respect as she stood in front of Xie Ganj. Nice to meet you, King of Arms. I am sorry that you and the organization were bothered because of me. I know even death cannot help me atone for the offense. Xie Ganj stared at her. Of course, he knew this was the girl he came here for. A glint of coldness rose in his eyes as she apologized. She was right. Not even death was enough for her to atone for her offense. Before he came, he investigated why she visited the Longjiang base city to begin with. It was because she wanted to use the Longjiang base city as a stepping stone to win the global championship of the Elite League. Sure, the Star organization didn't have a quota for the Elite League. But if you wanted to participate, you should have made a request to the organization. The organization would have made plans and arranged for you to go to a base city to compete from the very beginning. Well, look at what happened. You just had to use your own connections to come to this remote base city where a terrifying guy was hiding and ended ruffling his feathers. You created trouble for the organization for no reason at all. This beautiful girl really rubbed him in the wrong way, but he did not show his dislike, not when there were outsiders present. Don't mention it. As long as you're fine, Xie Ganj replied indifferently. Yang Bingyu had become used to the King of Arms acting distant. The fact that Xie Ganj was sitting right there had emboldened her. Something popped into her mind and made her eyes red. King of Arms, I am begging you, please avenge me. The Dragon Knight, Spear Devil, and Xiao Ju. They all died. He killed them all. She turned around and glared at Su Ping, openly showing the killing intent in her eyes. The thought that Xiao Ju had been crushed by her own battle pet pained Yang Bingyu so much that her heart had almost stopped beating. She felt as if a needle were constantly poking her heart and she could no longer bear it. A hush fell in the building. Silence prevailed when Yang Bingyu finished her accusation. She waited for a few seconds but received no reply. She could tell that something was wrong. She suddenly noticed that apart from Xie Ganj, there were other powerful warriors in the store and they were all at the titled rank. Why were this many titled battle pet warriors gathered in the store? She could tell that they were not from the Star organization, judging by the clothes they were wearing. All those people had weird looks on their faces. Yang Bingyu turned to Xie Ganj, only to see that his face was clouded. Sir. Yang Bingyu was baffled. Her instinct told her that something was off. Nonsense! Xie Ganj scolded her. He was honestly angry and his shout was so powerful that even the air was shaking. Yang Bingyu was even more confused. Hey? Why would he shout so loudly? They deserve to die. Not even death would not expiate all their crimes. Xie Ganj bit his teeth. The words weren't aimed at Yang Bingyu, but to show his attitude to Su Ping. He was mad at Yang Bingyu, afraid that her words would offend Su Ping even more. Things would definitely be bad if, in a fit of rage, he killed both of them. From now on, do not mention that thing. If you speak about it again, you will be banished from the Star organization. Xie Ganj glared at Yang Bingyu. Apologize to Mr. Su right away. Yang Bingyu, Ovo. Mr. Su? Why would the King of Arms address Su Ping as Mr. Su? Why would he be so polite to him? Yang Bingyue's confusion grew and grew. She looked around and soon found Tang Ruyan was in the crowd. Given that this girl was a fellow sufferer, Yang Bingyu had trust in her. But at this moment, she was seeing a strange look on Tang Ruyan's face. It was a look that was hard to explain in just a few words. Yang Bingyue's brain was becoming numb. She had no idea what had gone down exactly, but she was smart enough to tell that things were not going the way she had expected. It should have been the Star organization beating up Su Ping and then picking her up, showcasing to those country bumpkins how powerful the organization was, shouldn't it? So, why would she apologize to Su Ping? She was the victim. Su. Yang Bingyu mumbled. She found no words to say as an apology. Xie Ganj was speechless. How come a girl trained in the organization was like this? Could it be that the education methods in the organization had gone wrong over the years? Mr. Su, she is a kid and she doesn't know how to behave. Please forgive her. I will apologize on her behalf. I will discipline her when we get back, Xie Ganj said to Su Ping immediately. Su Ping calmed himself down. It's okay. Xie Ganj breathed in relief as he felt how Su Ping's killing intent died down. He would not waste another second here. Stay here and listen to Mr. Su. Do not mention those crazy stories again. Do whatever Mr. Su tells you to do. I've reached a deal with him. When time permits, someone from the organization will come and pick you up. Behave in the meantime. Do not stir up trouble for the organization again. He obviously sounded more serious as he reached the last sentence. He didn't mind that those local titled battle pet warriors were there, openly showing that he was afraid of Su Ping. Yang Bingyu looked up at him, astounded. She could not believe what she had heard. Stay here? Didn't he come here to pick me up? Xie Ganj said nothing to her. A girl who had created trouble for the organization would no longer be valued. Xie Ganj stood up and said his goodbyes to Su Ping and Venerable the Blade. Mr. Su, if you'll excuse me. Venerable the Blade, till we meet again. Venerable the Blade stood up and nodded to Xie Ganj. Godspeed. Su Ping said in a hurry, I haven't given you the list of materials yet. Xie Ganj suddenly remembered that. He slapped his head. Ah, look at me. Sorry. I'll wait. Su Ping found a pen and a piece of paper and wrote down the materials he needed for the second level of the solar bulwark. He would write up the same list to give to Lin Ziqing later so that the two parties could search for the materials at the same time. It would be more efficient. Being the largest force of the subcontinent district, the Star Organization would react faster. Su Ping gave the list to Xie Ganj. I want all of the materials on the list. Miss one and you will have to trade it for a chance to pick another treasure. Xie Ganj was surprised. That was not part of the deal. It was clear that Su Ping didn't trust him and was afraid that he was merely making an empty promise. Mr. Su, don't worry. We'll try our best to find the materials for you. Xie Ganj didn't say yes or no. He had to go back to discuss the detailed steps. The priority was to leave the store. Su Ping raised his eyebrows after this perfunctory answer, and yet, Xie Ganj's answer was smart. Su Ping asked another question, when would you give me the treasures? Xie Ganj answered, Mr. Su, you are welcome to come to the Star Organization whenever you're free. Su Ping snorted coldly. So, you are telling me that I cannot have them if I don't go? Su Ping's anger frightened Xie Ganj. The latter apologized at once, of course not. Mr. Su, if you're too busy, we can have them delivered to you. By this time tomorrow, you will give me the information about the treasures and I will pick out 3 items. You will deliver the 3 items to me by this time the day after tomorrow. If you're late, I'll go to you to pick them up and I'll take her dead body with me. Xie Ganj turned pale. Mr. Su, don't be mad. I will do what I said. Xie Ganj being so obedient made Yang Bingyu all the more confused. She wondered if she was having a dream and whether she was still inside the scroll. A person who was at the peak of the titled rank, second only to legendary battle pet warriors, was smiling obsequiously at Su Ping? Something had changed in the world that made it all strange. Mr. Su, do you have any other demands for me? If not, I'll see myself out. Xie Ganj could not wait to get away. Since he was eager to leave, Su Ping didn't prolong his stay. Sabotaging the Star Organization was the least of his interests. He would avoid it unless it was absolutely necessary. As the largest force in the subcontinent district, the Star Organization boasted many properties and assets. To wipe out the organization was easy, but to take over all the affiliated properties and business was hard. Those businesses would be cannibalized by other tycoons, which would be beneficial for the tycoons but detrimental to the innocent people working in those businesses. The ordinary workers might get laid off and families could break down. That was why, while he was powerful enough to defeat others with violence, he wasn't willing to resort to violence at every turn. At the same time, when someone went too far, he wouldn't act as kindly. He would think about others while he could, but if he was enraged, such considerations would no longer be of his concern. After all, he had never been a kind person. I don't have anything else to say. But remember to behave. Su Ping darted a meaningful look at Xie Ganj. It wasn't a warning, but a piece of sincere advice. Ganj produced a forced smile, waved goodbye, and left. He was about to go away when he stopped with a frown. He looked up to the sky and saw a dark cloud moving slowly toward the store. The dark cloud merely appeared to be moving slowly. A few seconds later, Ganj saw that the cloud grew several times larger. A few more seconds passed. He could already see the details. It was a flock of birds. Is this an attack? Ganj wore a grave expression. It came as a surprise for the base city to be on the verge of an attack. By aerial beasts no less. Ganj mobilized astral powers, ready to help out. As a titled battle pet warrior, honor and power were not the only things he considered. He had heavy responsibility on his shoulders as well. He enjoyed the admiration of countless people, so he had to protect their lives. Chapter 399. Finish it. What? Su Ping was going to see Ganj out, so he saw the approaching dark cloud as well. He immediately used the star prism and gathered astral powers on his eyes. Coupled with the help of the solar bulwark, his vision was enhanced, soon recognizing that the cloud was a flock of birds. Dark feather phoenix? Thunder sparrows? Su Ping was puzzled. Both the dark feather phoenix and thunder sparrow were birds, but the latter was the former's food. As a matter of fact, most of the birds were the dark feather phoenix's food. Why would those two kids stay together? Soon, as the flock of birds moved closer, Su Ping saw humans moving about on the backs of the birds. This was not an attack. Ganj was about to fly up and deal with the flock of birds when he noticed the humans as well. He gazed at the crowd. So, those people belonged to a certain force. With such a power, that force had to be foreign. All of a sudden, a name jumped into his mind. Only one family would use thunder sparrows as mounts. Why would that family come here? The dark cloud blotted out the light. The flock of birds came with an impressive display of power. The wind stirred up by their flapping wings was swept across the street, creating a doomsday view. The reporters who still lingered outside the store were terrified. The heavy wind had turned over the devices and equipment they had set up. Some people were losing their hats to the wind as well. Here! Inside the store, Venerable the Blade and the family elders were able to see what was happening in the street. They couldn't see the sky since they were sitting or standing inside, but they did feel as if darkness had prevailed. It felt as if dark clouds had emerged from nowhere and a storm was brewing. What caused the sudden change of weather? Soon, some of them heard birds crying outside. The cries weren't loud. In fact, they were barely audible to the common people. But being titled battle pet warriors, they could hear the noise quite clearly, as if they were surrounded by the flock of birds. What is going on? Surprised, they hurried to the door. At the first look, they gasped. So many birds. All of the numerous thunder sparrows had grown to the 8th rank. In front of the thunder sparrows, some of the family elders held their breath. Is that the dark feather phoenix? A bird at the peak of the 9th rank. They are. Following the family elders to the door were Tang Ruyan and Yang Bingyu. Tang Ruyan's first reaction when she saw the dark feather phoenix was to be pleasantly surprised. But she immediately thought of something worrisome. She would have started gloating, and pointing at Su Ping's nose, shouting triumphantly if she had never seen what the skeleton was able to do. Having witnessed the skeleton's power, Tang Ruyan was more worried than happy. She wondered how many of his family members were coming. She could tell from the number of thunder sparrows that it was a feather army. In total, the Tang family had 5 feather armies. There were 5,000 thunder sparrows in the 5 armies, and all the masters of the thunder sparrows were 8th rank battle pet warriors. Those 8th rank battle pet warriors would normally be considered as big potatoes in the remote base cities. However, they were merely members of the Tang family's feather army. As powerful as the feather armies were, they were more suitable in a mass brawl. For one-on-one battles, an individual's strength would matter more. She wondered how many elders from the Tang family had shown up. Tang Ruyan was clutching her clothes. She was so nervous that her palms were sweaty. A dark feather phoenix. Venerable the Blade was stunned when he saw the largest bird flying in front of the thunder sparrows. The dark feather phoenix enjoyed great fame. It was a quite rare pet. Few people owned a dark feather phoenix in the entire subcontinent district. The most famous one was the person from the Tang family. Therefore, Venerable the Blade had realized who was coming right after seeing the dark feather phoenix. He remembered the girl from the Tang family who had been staying in Su Ping's store. Venerable the Blade cast a glance at the girl. The Tang family must have received the news and was coming for her. Su Ping had just taken care of Xie Ganj from the Star organization, and then the Tang family arrived. Venerable the Blade curled his lips and gazed at Su Ping from behind. Su Ping was too good at stirring up trouble. First, he provoked the largest force in the subcontinent district, and then he rubbed an ancient family the wrong way. Venerable the Blade realized he had indeed paid a visit on the wrong day. He had accomplished nothing this day, other than joining in the fun. Dark Feather Phoenix. Are they from the Tang family? I think so. I've heard about them. The other family elders were whispering. Qin Shuhai was confused. Was there anything special about the day? He could understand why the Star organization would make a move. But why would the Tang family go there? Su Ping heard the whispers. The Tang family? Interesting. He looked at Tang Ruyan. Finally, he could use her to get something practical. In the meantime, the dark feather phoenix flew downward until it stopped to hover in the air. The dark feather phoenix had a wingspan of over 100 meters, which had blotted out the light across several stores. With the other two 9th-rank battle pet warriors and the flock of thunder sparrows, no place on the street could see any light. The flock of birds stopped. The reporters outside the store were shaking in fear. Some even planned on running to Su Ping to seek some protection. However, Su Ping and those titled battle pet warriors were another source of pressure. The reporters gave up on the plan and inched closer to the walls. A certain number of reporters were quite like war correspondents because they still didn't forget to take photos in that critical moment. A suffocating atmosphere enveloped the entire street as the dark feather phoenix and the thunder sparrows stopped. The people on the street were on edge. Cry! The dark feather phoenix called. The shrill cry was like an invisible and intangible sharp blade. The glasses were shattered in buildings on the street that weren't part of the pet store. The average men in the street covered up their heads. That bird call had almost knocked them unconscious. We are from the Tang family. Who is the boss of the Pixie Pet store? Come out, shouted a man standing on one of the thunder sparrows. The man had a stalwart figure. He had crossed his arms in front of his chest. He was able to remain standing on the soft feathers of the thunder sparrow without any help from any devices. He was looking down to see the street below. The family elders stared at Su Ping in astonishment. It was the truth. Those people were from the Tang family, one of the 4 ancient families in the subcontinent district. They had gone there for Su Ping. What has this devil done to upset the Tang family? Su Ping saw the glasses breaking on the buildings. He could tell that some people were bleeding out of their eyes and ears because of the shrill cry. A glint of coldness rose in his eyes. He could not stand this. Finish it, Su Ping said, coldly. That furious voice frightened Xie Ganj, Venerable the Blade, the elders, and Tang Ruyan. They all knew that Su Ping could make that happen. But this was the Tang family. Could he do this to them? The little skeleton was standing next to Su Ping. Upon hearing the command, the little skeleton looked at him and then the huge dark feather phoenix in the sky above the street. A crimson glow rose in the little skeleton's eye sockets. The glow grew brighter and brighter until they seemed like 2 balls of fire were burning in the eye sockets. A strong killing intent was emitted from the little skeleton. Realizing that the legendary rank skeleton was going to take action again, the family elders hurried to the sides in fear. Venerable the Blade and Xie Ganj were just as afraid as anyone else. Not daring to stand in the way, they stepped to the sides to make room. Yang Bingyu was again baffled. She had seen the skeleton taking action before. Sure, it was incredibly powerful. Even so, why were Venerable the Blade and King of Arms so scared? Chapter 400. Joanna helping out. Finish it! All of a sudden, a stream of air was spread out from under the little skeleton's feet. The little skeleton abruptly vanished into thin air and re-emerged in the sky, close to 100 meters above the ground. The bone blade the little skeleton was holding had an additional layer of dark glow. Behind the little skeleton was the figure of the Skeleton King, which was gradually coming into being. The cruel and barbaric dark feather phoenix squinted its eyes. There was a gruesome feeling. The dark feather phoenix felt its blood freeze and its feathers stand on end. But, given that it was a battle pet at the peak of the 9th rank, the dark feather phoenix was able to adjust quickly. Boom! Dark gray energy seeped out from its feathers, flowing down its entire body. The energy was full of the smell of death. The dark feather phoenix could be counted as half a pet of the undead family and had thus mastered some of the undead skills. All of a sudden, a ferocious and grayish skull appeared in front of the dark feather phoenix. The skull opened its mouth, as if trying to devour the little skeleton. The little skeleton gazed at the skull with its burning eyes. Next, the little skeleton lifted its dark bone blade and swung it with great force. The sword light oozing out from the blade made the air tremble. Like a threatening dragon formed by dark energy, the sword light dashed toward the dark feather phoenix in a straight line. Hey! The old man standing on the dark feather phoenix could sense the danger as well. Startled, the old man mobilized astral powers immediately. A huge, spinning shield that was in the shape of an astral power matrix with a diameter of over 100 meters came into being in front of the dark feather phoenix. Bang! The astral power matrix had a splendid look. However, it had just taken shape when the dark sword light came into contact and crushed it. The sword light pressed on with no more hindrance. There was nothing else to stop it. Bang! The grayish skull cried out when the dark sword light landed on it. The sword light pierced through the skull and landed on the neck of the dark feather phoenix. A sharp scream echoed in the sky. Those standing by the store felt something was pouring down from the sky. They took a closer look. To their surprise, it was a rain of blood. The blood drops cascaded down to the ground. In an instant, the rain of blood had tainted the entire street. Even after having personally experienced a fight with the little skeleton, Xie Ganj was still horrified. At the same time, he was shocked that Su Ping would resort to violence when the Tang family had just arrived. The other family elders could hardly summon up the strength to hide their astonishment. Although they had seen what the little skeleton could do several times, they were still unable to keep calm. The little skeleton was terrifying. Su Ping gazed at the sky. The coldness in his eyes remained. Those huge birds were still blotting the sky. One day, he would have the little skeleton disperse all the darkness in the world with its blade. As the dark feather phoenix cried and the blood poured down, the other two people who were standing on the battle pets flying next to the phoenix's sides were appalled. They had sensed the existence of the skeleton already, but they hadn't been able to tell how dangerous this skeleton was. It was hard to imagine that such an ominous energy was hiding inside the small skeleton. The thing that enraged them the most was that the skeleton and the owner of the store dared to initiate the attack on them. How dare you? Kill them! No one can escape today. I will drench this place with blood. The two were hopping mad. They could tell that there were many titled battle pet warriors gathered in the store. Of those titled battle pet warriors, 2 were hiding their strength well. But those 2 would be at the peak of the title rank at best, which was the same as themselves. But the Tang family's side had 3 at the peak of the titled rank. Plus, there was the Feather Army and the Tactic Army. The Tang family was determined to retaliate even if there could be more battle pet warriors at the peak of the titled rank hiding in the store, all because the Tang family's dignity was unassailable. The 1,000 thunder sparrows were inspired by the 2's words, crying loudly. The birds were of the thunder family. As 1,000 of them cried at the same time, it was as if thunder were clapping in the sky. God no! They are going to destroy the entire street. The family elders were scared by the Tang family's move. Even the family elders would be unable to escape if the 1,000 thunder sparrows were to blow up the street. Besides, that bird contingent was able to muster a power equal to the peak of the titled rank. That would be hard to withstand even for those family elders. That was why the Tang family was using the thunder sparrows as their rides, and to form an army. It wasn't because of the homogeneous look. It was because the thunder sparrows could share each other's strength. Xieganj and Venerable the Blade also turned pale. It never occurred to them that the Tang family would resort to violence so directly. The attack could also affect the nearby streets. The tremors caused by the attack were enough to destroy some buildings. Collapsing buildings would easily harm the average men on the street. Venerable the Blade was hesitating. He knew that the mysterious girl with the golden hair in Su Ping's store had yet to come out, and she was a real legendary battle pet warrior. The Tang family was about to exert full force. He was hesitating as to whether he should act as a peacemaker. While he was still trying to decide, he felt someone coming from behind him. As soon as he felt the presence, a chill began to run down his spine. It was as if a hand as cold as ice was ripping his back apart and then stroking his spine from top to bottom. Horrifying and formidable. Venerable the Blade didn't have to look back to know that a mighty person was walking over. He worked up the strength and turned his head around. The golden hair leaped into his sight. It was hair. Venerable the Blade squinted his eyes. At the same time, the other family elders, Qin Shuhai and Xieganj, had also felt the additional presence. They turned around and saw a golden-haired girl standing in the store. Since they had never seen her before, her existence had taken them aback. They remembered the rooms that they couldn't probe into and the many secrets behind this store. The girl was also related to the store? She seemed to be the same age as Su Ping. While they were wondering, Joanna had moved closer to the door. She looked at the flock of birds and then asked Su Ping, "Do you need any help?" Su Ping didn't expect that she would come out on her own. "Can you reach them?" Su Ping inquired. Truth be told, the little skeleton alone could have taken care of the Tang family. With one skill, the little skeleton would summon many slaves of the undead at the 9th rank to help out. Even in a mass brawl, the little skeleton could easily fight against 1,000 all by itself. Still, a mass fight would inflict great harm to the nearby residents and many innocent people would end up hurting. To avoid getting innocent people involved would be the best. Of course. Joanna nodded. She only came out because she received a message. The message was that someone was trying to attack the store. The Tang family's target was the entire street and, most importantly, the store that occupied most of the land on the street. As an employee, Joanna would naturally receive a message. Joanna could see the areas she could reach light up in green. The color represented the store's territory. On the ground, the territory was limited. But in regards to the vertical dimension, the territory of the store could extend to over 1,000 meters. The Tang family was targeting the store and the huge army was about 200 to 300 meters above ground, which was well within range. Su Ping thought of something. He visualized the territory of the store as well and soon noticed that the airspace above the store was lighting up in green, too. The Tang family was breaking into his territory. "Can you minimize the impact of the fight?" Su Ping asked. Joanna nodded. "Those puny insects do not deserve to fight me yet." Good. That was why Su Ping was asking this. Spare the 3 leaders. Kill the others.